Sir, could you be my husband? Just for one day? The words escaped before Maya Williams could think better of them. I beg your pardon? Ethan said, his voice low, cool, and laced with the kind of amusement that could cut glass. It's just, Maya drew in a breath. One day. Saturday, to be exact. My family's coming to town. And they think I'm married. A pause. You told them you're married, he repeated, like he was trying to decide if she was unwell or just ill-advised. Maya hesitated, but this was the kind of moment that years of quiet exhaustion and one very big lie had dragged her into. Yes, she said. I told them I was married. A few years ago, actually. Ethan leaned back slightly, one brow lifting. A few years ago? I didn't mean to lie at first, she rushed to explain. It started small. My mom kept asking when I'd settle down. Every weekend it was someone new she wanted me to meet Deacon's sons. Old church friends. Sons of coworkers. I got tired of the pity, so I made someone up. And this imaginary husband of yours, he said, the corner of his mouth twitching. What's he like? Maya flushed. Successful, kind, someone who travels a lot. That made it easier to explain why he was never around. And your mother believed this? Oh, she didn't just believe it. Maya muttered. She bragged. To everyone. Family. Church. Neighbors. Even her bowling team. Ethan studied her, but she didn't look away. Her eyes, deep brown and steady, met his without flinching now. The damage was done. All she could do was own it. And the neighbors? He asked. She hesitated, then said. They laughed. Said I was delusional. That I'd made up a man because I couldn't get one. She offered a tight smile. One lady said I should sell the story to Hallmark. Ethan didn't laugh, but something shifted in his expression just slightly. Not pity, something quieter. He picked up the Mont Blanc pen from his desk, then set it down again. So now, he said slowly, your family wants to meet him. Saturday, she confirmed. They're coming for my grandmother's 70th. It's a big deal. My mom's flying people in from Atlanta. My uncles are driving up from Texas. There's going to be ribs, pound cake, you name it. And everyone's expecting to meet my husband. Maya swallowed. Just a day, Saturday, my family. No. The word cracked through the room like a whip. Her heart lurched. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. Ethan rose from his chair, movements controlled, dangerous in their stillness. You walked into my office, he said slowly, voice frost-cold, to ask me, a man you barely know, to pretend to be your husband. Do you realize how insane that sounds? Maya's breath shook. I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy. His gaze hardened. It sounds pathetic. The word hit her like a fist to the chest. Pathetic. Her lips parted, stunned, but he wasn't finished. You think this is some fairy tale? That powerful men stroll into your life and save you because you can't manage your own family pressure? His voice sharpened. Grow up, Miss Williams. I didn't mean... He moved so abruptly that Maya instinctively stepped back. Ethan reached the door with a swift stride and pulled it open to dismiss her, the force shaking the frame. The heavy door brushed her shoulder. She lost balance, stumbling backward and dropping the folder. Papers scattered across the polished marble like broken wings. She hit the floor. A stunned silence followed, thick, humiliating, suffocating. Her pride burned, but the ache in her chest was worse than the sting of the fall. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Ethan's jaw clenched. He hadn't meant to knock her over, but the damage was done. Slowly, painfully, Maya pushed herself onto her knees, gathering the papers with trembling fingers. Her shoulder throbbed. She blinked rapidly, willing her vision to stay clear. Crying here would be the final humiliation. But one hot tear betrayed her, sliding down her cheek. Get up, Ethan said quietly. Not gentle, he didn't know how to be, but no longer venomous. She didn't. Not yet. Kneeling, hair falling around her face, she lifted her gaze to him, not begging for dignity, begging to survive the lie she'd boxed herself into. Another tear, another breath breaking. He crouched slightly, not touching her, but lowering himself enough that she didn't have to look up at him from the floor. Get up, Maya, he said quietly. Please. She hesitated, chest trembling. Slowly, She rose, clutching her papers like armor. Their eyes met hers, shimmering, wounded but unbroken, his stormy, conflicted, something shifting behind the steel. "What's your grandmother's name?" he asked softly. She blinked. "Manema Ruth." "What does she like to eat?" "Fried catfish, collard greens, sweet tea strong enough to take the enamel off your teeth." A breath, almost a laugh, escaped him, warm, human. "And your family arrives Saturday?" She nodded. He exhaled, long, resigned, the sound of a fortress, allowing one fragile crack. "I'll do it," he murmured. "Just one day." Maya didn't breathe for a full second. "Really? Just one?" he repeated, voice firm but gentler now than she'd ever heard it. Hope flickered in her chest, fragile as glass, bright as sunrise. She bowed her head, not kneeling this time, not begging, just grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. As she turned to leave, Ethan watched her, jaw tight, not with anger anymore, but with the uneasy weight of feeling something he had long sworn never to feel again. Pity? No. Something sharper, something dangerous. Curiosity, regret, and the faintest, most unwelcome tug of protectiveness. If you feel for Maya, tap like and comment where you're watching from. You might just find someone near you watching too. Maya didn't remember how she made it back to her desk on the 22nd floor. Her legs moved, but her mind floated somewhere above her, too stunned to catch up. The folder she had dropped was wrinkled from the fall, but her grip didn't ease even as she passed the front desk and nodded at Susan, the receptionist, who gave her a curious look. Inside the break room, she poured herself a cup of lukewarm coffee with shaking hands. The bitter taste grounded her. Slightly. One day, just one day, it echoed in her ears, over and over. Ethan Caldwell had said yes. Well, not exactly yes, but not no. A reluctant maybe was more than she could have hoped for. A window into saving her dignity, at least temporarily. Still, she knew better than to think it would be easy. Sure enough, when her workday ended, a message waited in her inbox from Caldwell's office. "Be at my penthouse, 8 p.m. We set terms. Do not be late." The attached address was not the one registered to the company. It was an exclusive high-rise in the West Village, a building she'd only seen in real estate gossip blogs, the kind of place where even the doorman had NDAs. At 7:59 p.m., Maya stood in front of a glass elevator, stomach in knots. She had changed into a navy blouse and simple black slacks, but next to the gleam of the lobby's marble floors, she still felt like an imposter. She gave her name to the concierge, who nodded once and gestured her in. The ride to the top was silent, save for the soft hum of motion and the distant city breathing below. When the elevator doors slid open, she stepped directly into Ethan Caldwell's penthouse. She froze. It was breathtaking. Vaulted ceilings, art she couldn't name, light streaming from brass fixtures that probably cost more than her mother's car. The entire east wall was glass, revealing a panoramic view of the glittering city. In the middle of the room, Ethan stood at a long dining table, not formal, just sleek and modern. He was pouring a drink. "You're on time," he said without looking. "You told me not to be late." He turned, a glass of whiskey in hand. "Sit." She obeyed, cautiously, perching at the far end of the table. "We need rules," he said, placing a leather-bound notebook in front of her. "Ground rules, boundaries." "Okay. This is not real. There will be no confusion about that." "Understood. There will be no physical contact unless absolutely necessary to maintain appearances." She hesitated. "Appearances?" He gave her a look. "They'll expect hand-holding, maybe a kiss on the cheek. At minimum, familiarity. We don't need to look like a love story. We just need to be believable." Maya nodded, trying not to flinch at the clinical tone. "Fine. We will rehearse basic details: how we met, how long we've been together, what we argue about, what we laugh about. I'll need a crash course in your family. And I need one in you," she said quietly. "I can't sell this if I don't even know what kind of man I'm supposedly married to." He paused, then tilted his head, considering. "Fair," he said finally. "I'm 44, born in Massachusetts. Parents divorced before I turned 10. Raised by my grandfather. Private school, Harvard business. Lost my wife and daughter 7 years ago in a plane crash. I don't speak about them. The words were delivered with such brutal efficiency that Maya almost missed the tremor behind them. Her heart softened. "I'm sorry," she said and meant it. Ethan sat down across from her. "Don't be." It happened. Silence stretched. Maya looked around the room again, desperate for distraction. "You live alone?" "Yes." "No pets? No time? No personal photos?" He arched an eyebrow. "Would that have helped your story?" "Would have made it easier to pretend." He poured a second glass of whiskey and slid it to her. She didn't drink it. "What about you?" he asked. She inhaled. "Bronx. Born. Public school. Fordham. For pre-law. Dropped out after my dad passed and mom got sick. Took jobs wherever I could. Landed here 2 years ago. My mom's name is Lorraine. My grandmother, Mama Ruth, is turning 70 this weekend, hence the party." He nodded. "Siblings?" "None. But I have cousins. Loud ones. And this fake marriage. How long has it existed in their minds?" 3 years. He let out a low whistle. "You've been faking a marriage for 3 years?" "I didn't mean to," she said. "It started with a joke. Then it became a shield. Every time someone asked if I was okay, I'd point to an imaginary ring and say, 'I'm good.' After a while, they stopped asking. I didn't have to explain why I was tired, or why I was working weekends, or why I missed every baby shower and wedding. I just stopped having to explain myself." Ethan studied her. "And now? Now they're all coming to New York expecting to meet the man who treats me like I hung the moon." He said nothing. "I know this is a lot," she said quietly, "and I'm sorry for involving you." "You already did," he replied, finishing his drink, "so we might as well do it right." Her eyes widened. "You're still agreeing?" "One day. Saturday only. That's the deal." Maya exhaled slowly, unsure if she felt relief or dread. "I'll have my assistant arrange a schedule." He continued. "You'll need to be here Thursday and Friday evening. We rehearse. We plan. No improvisation." "Okay. And, Maya?" She looked up. "If at any point you get the wrong idea about this, about us, you walk. I don't do emotional entanglements." The words were harsh, but she understood. This wasn't a romance. It was a transaction, a performance. Still, something flickered behind his eyes, something too fleeting to name. "I understand," she said, voice steady. They sat in silence, the city glimmering around them, two strangers on the edge of a shared lie neither could afford to unravel. One day, that's all it would be. At least, that's what they told themselves. Thursday evening arrived faster than either of them expected. Maya stood once again inside Ethan Caldwell's penthouse, feeling no less out of place than she had 2 nights ago. Her blouse was freshly pressed, her jeans dark and fitted, but nothing she wore could erase the feeling that she didn't belong in a space like this where the air smelled faintly of expensive leather and clean marble, and silence held weight. Ethan was already waiting for her in the main room, seated on a low modern sofa with a legal pad in his lap and a pair of reading glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. It was the first time Maya had seen him wear glasses. Somehow, it made him look even more intimidating. "You're late," he said without looking up. She glanced at the clock. "It's 6:59. I said 6:45. She set her bag down. "Traffic on the FDR. Someone decided to flip a car over a median." He looked up at her finally, and to her surprise, there was the ghost of a smirk tugging at one corner of his mouth. "Let's hope your excuse game is better by Saturday." Maya rolled her eyes. "Let's hope your charm improves by then, too." That caught him off guard. For a second, he blinked, as if he weren't used to being spoken to like a human being. Then, with the smallest nod, he gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit, we start now." "No." She sank into the armchair across from him, exhaling slowly. She had barely processed the fact that this was happening, that Ethan Caldwell, Wall Street's most enigmatic power player, had agreed to act like her husband in front of a house full of nosy aunts and suspicious cousins. He handed her a printed schedule. "This is your family's itinerary. Friday night dinner with out-of-town guests. Saturday morning breakfast with your mom and grandmother. Main event, the party, 3 p.m., Harlem. I'll be there for that." She scanned the schedule. "How do you know all this?" "I called Lucille. She seems to know everything. Maya smiled. Of course, Lucille had told him. The older woman practically ran the entire human resources department and had known Maya since her first day. Now, Ethan said, tapping his pen against the paper, we need a story. Maya sat forward. Okay, let's say we met in the building. I brought reports to your office. You were impressed with my efficiency. Vrut. He gave her a look. That sounds like an HR liability. She laughed. Okay, then we met at a charity gala. Better. I'll say we bumped into each other at the Met fundraiser. I was sponsoring a grant. You were volunteering. Volunteering? Maya frowned. Do I look like I have time to volunteer? You do now, he said flatly, making a note. We've been dating for 3 years. Married for 1. 1? She asked. Wouldn't people be suspicious if I just suddenly had a ring? They won't ask, he said. They'll be too busy talking about the food and asking if I watch the Knicks. You don't. No one really does. Maya chuckled, despite herself. For the next hour, they rehearsed. Favorite restaurants, an Italian place in the village. Inside jokes, he once confused collard greens for spinach, and she never let him forget it. First fight, he forgot her birthday, then made it up with tickets to the Alvin Ailey Dance Company. That actually sounds romantic, she said. I thought it would sound expensive, he replied. They practiced how to stand close, how to lean in like a couple. She tried not to stiffen every time he reached out to touch her arm or brushed her shoulder. There was nothing inappropriate in his gestures. Everything was rehearsed, precise, but still, her heart beat faster than it should have. At some point, Ethan stood behind her, guiding her hands. If someone asks how we dance together, he said, you say, like this. He took her left hand in his and placed the other gently at her waist. His touch was light, but Maya felt it everywhere. The heat of his palm, the distance between their bodies that was rapidly vanishing, the steady rhythm of his breathing. She looked up at him, heart fluttering in her chest. You really thought this through? I don't do anything halfway. No. Their eyes locked. Something passed between them too fleeting to grasp, too dangerous to name, and then he stepped back, clearing his throat. We'll practice again tomorrow, 7 p.m. Maya nodded, still catching her breath. She grabbed her purse, preparing to leave. At the door, she paused. Ethan? He looked up. Why are you really doing this? There it was. The question she hadn't dared to ask since he'd said yes. He hesitated. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer, but then he said, because when you fell in my office, I saw something I recognized. The feeling of losing control, of being alone. And because, you asked. Maya stared at him. It wasn't a grand declaration, it wasn't romantic, but it was honest. She nodded slowly. Thank you. He gave a tight nod in return. One day. Don't forget that. She stepped into the elevator and let the doors close between them. As she descended, her heart warred between dread and something dangerously close to anticipation. This was just a favor, a temporary act, but something about it was already starting to feel real. The restaurant was an old Harlem favorite, brick walls, brass light fixtures, and the kind of soul food that reminded people of Sundays at Grandma's. Lorraine Williams had picked the place, of course. Mama Ruth insisted on collard greens done right, and Maya's family didn't mess with places that thought cayenne pepper was too spicy. Ethan arrived at precisely 6:45 p.m., dressed down if tailored charcoal slacks and a navy sport coat counted as down. Maya watched him step out of the black town car and button his coat with the kind of calm practiced only by people who'd never had to chase buses or cut coupons. She was already waiting at the host stand, stomach in knots. When he approached, she caught a glimpse of the server's expression, half awe, half curiosity. It wasn't every day someone who looked like Ethan Caldwell strolled into their neighborhood. You're early, Maya said, offering a stiff smile. You're nervous, he replied. I hide it better than you think. He glanced at the restaurant. This your usual? For family stuff, yeah. It's not a boardroom, but it's real. He looked around, then back at her. Real is good. What? The host led them to the back room where Maya's family had already gathered. Laughter erupted the second they entered. Aunt Janice was holding court about a car accident involving a shopping cart. Cousin Desmond was playing something loud on his phone, and Mama Ruth sat in the center like a crowned queen, smiling warmly at the chaos. Then the room quieted. All eyes turned to Maya. And to Ethan. He straightened a little, like instinct. The same way one might do before stepping into a shareholders' meeting. Maya touched his wrist softly and whispered, "Relax. You're not being audited." He looked at her with the faintest smirk. "Not yet." "Baby!" Lorraine's voice rang out as she stood up, arms already outstretched. "You didn't say he was this tall." Maya barely had time to brace herself before her mother was hugging Ethan, then stepping back to assess him like a rare artifact. "My goodness," Lorraine said, half joking. "You sure you married her?" There was laughter, but Maya stiffened. Ethan didn't flinch. He took Lorraine's hand, kissed it lightly. "It's one of my better decisions." Lorraine blinked, clearly impressed. "Oh, he's smooth." "Grandma," Maya said quickly, leading Ethan toward Mama Ruth. "This is him. The man of the hour." Mama Ruth looked up slowly. Her eyes were kind, but sharp like she could see through steel. "You look like money," she said bluntly, studying Ethan. He chuckled. "That's not the worst thing I've been called." She reached out and took his hand in hers. "But do you treat my baby like treasure?" He didn't pause. "She's the most grounded person I've met. Honest, determined. Sometimes brutally honest." Maya blinked. Mama Ruth smiled, satisfied. "Then sit, eat, and don't let them bully you." Dinner began with catfish platters, candied yams, and a million questions disguised as small talk. Cousin Desmond leaned over. "So, what do you do again?" "Finance," Ethan replied. "Like, stocks and stuff?" "Something like that." "How rich are you?" "Desmond," Maya hissed. Ethan didn't blink. "Depends on the day." There was a pause, and then, laughter. Ethan had charmed them. Or at least, most of them. After the second round of cornbread, Uncle Benny leaned in, fixing Ethan with a look. "You from money?" Ethan took a sip of water. "No. My grandfather ran a hardware store." Benny nodded slowly. "Good. Just making sure you understand where she comes from. Maya's not a brand. She's blood." Ethan's jaw tightened slightly, but he gave a respectful nod. Understood. Maya had never wanted to crawl under a table so badly, but when she met Ethan's eyes, he gave her the smallest shake of his head. "Don't worry." Somehow, he was handling this. After dessert, banana pudding, and 2 rounds of coffee, Mama Ruth pulled Maya aside. "You nervous, baby?" Maya hesitated. "A little." Mama Ruth looked toward Ethan, who was helping Lorraine with her coat. "He loves you?" Maya's breath caught. "He's steady." "That's not what I asked." She didn't answer. Mama Ruth nodded, not unkindly. "You know, love ain't always fireworks. Sometimes it's a man who comes on time and helps your mama carry her purse. But don't lie to yourself trying to fill a hole that ain't his to fix." Maya's heart ached. She kissed her grandmother on the cheek and promised to call tomorrow. As they walked outside, Ethan offered her his coat without asking. "I didn't think you owned anything that wasn't charcoal or black," she teased. "I have navy," he said. They stood on the sidewalk for a moment, watching Lorraine argue with the Lyft app and Cousin Desmond flirt with a waitress. "Thank you," Maya said quietly. "For what?" "For not walking out. For not laughing." Ethan turned to her, eyes unreadable. "I don't laugh at strength." There was silence between them then, not awkward, not tense, just stillness. The kind of peace Maya rarely found. One day, she reminded herself. Just one day. But the way Ethan looked at her now really looked made her wonder if one day was already too short. Friday night arrived on a gust of autumn wind, the kind that carried the scent of roasted chestnuts from sidewalk vendors and signaled that winter wasn't far behind. Maya stood in front of the full-length mirror inside Ethan's penthouse guest suite, smoothing down the front of the cocktail dress she'd borrowed from Lucille, elegant but simple, the kind of dress that whispered grace instead of shouting glamour. She felt strange in it, like she was trying on someone else's life. The party was just a day away, and tonight's rehearsal dinner would be the final test before everything went public. Ethan had suggested a small, private mock dinner, just the two of them, so they could rehearse the pacing, the dynamic, the intimacy of being a believable married couple. Except the word intimacy rattled around her mind a little longer than she liked. When she stepped into the main living space, Ethan was already there, adjusting the cuffs of his white shirt. He wasn't wearing a tie tonight. The top button was undone, sleeves rolled to the elbows. Somehow, that made him even more disarming, less like a CEO, and more like a man who could walk into your kitchen on a Sunday morning and ask if you wanted eggs. He looked up when he heard her. Maya froze. His gaze lingered longer than necessary, flicking over the curve of her shoulders, the way her curls framed her face, the soft fabric of her dress. He didn't speak at first, just nodded, slowly. "You look convincing," he said finally. She lifted an eyebrow. "That's all I'm going for, right?" A pause. Then, "Right." He stepped aside, gesturing toward the dining table where 2 plates sat beneath warm lighting. No caterer, no assistants. Just a home-cooked meal. Or so she thought. "Wait," Maya said, sniffing the air. "Did you cook?" "I called in favors." She grinned. "So, you ordered takeout and plated it?" "Presentation is everything," he replied smoothly, pulling out her chair. She sat, trying not to enjoy how naturally the gesture came. The food smelled amazing: herbed salmon, roasted vegetables, cornbread with honey butter. "This is our story," Ethan said as he sat across from her. "I want it clean, seamless, no cracks." Maya nodded. "We met at the Met Gala. I was volunteering. You noticed my handwriting on a donation ledger and asked if I was in finance." He smirked. "That's how I flirt?" "Apparently. And we got married a year ago, quietly. Small ceremony, no press." My mother was furious we didn't invite the whole church." He chuckled. "What do we fight about?" Maya thought for a moment. "You don't take vacations. You check your phone during dinner. You think frozen pizza is an acceptable breakfast." "It is," he said. They both laughed. Then she asked, "What do we love about each other?" The question lingered. Ethan set his fork down slowly. "We respect each other's space. You challenge me. You don't let me bulldoze you like everyone else does." Maya blinked. "You?" she asked quietly. He looked at her. No humor in his eyes now. "You remind me what being human looks like." It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't on the script. It was honest. Maya's heart beat too loudly in her chest. She looked down at her plate, unsure how to respond. This wasn't supposed to get personal. Ethan stood abruptly, walking to the window. The city glowed outside, millions of lights, none brighter than the tension pulsing between them. "I forgot what it was like to sit at a table and laugh," he said, more to the glass than to her. "To feel uncomplicated." She joined him slowly, her heels soft against the polished floor. "It's not uncomplicated," she said. "It's pretend." He turned to her. "Is it?" She met his gaze. "It has to be." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan pulled something from his pocket, a velvet box. He opened it, revealing a simple but beautiful wedding band. Platinum. Understated. Real. "We'll need this tomorrow," he said. "Symbolism matters." Maya stared at it. "You bought a ring?" "I had it already. Belonged to my grandmother." Her breath caught. "Ethan, I can't." "You're not keeping it. Just wearing it." She nodded, slowly, reaching out. Her fingers brushed his as she took the ring, and for the first time, she felt the weight of the lie she was about to tell, not just to her family, but to herself. This was no longer a story she could keep at arm's length. He slipped the ring onto her finger, careful, deliberate. Their hands lingered longer than necessary. When she looked up at him, she found something fragile in his eyes. Not love, not yet, but something hovering near the border of possibility. "You ready for tomorrow?" he asked. She exhaled. "I don't think anyone's ever really ready to lie to everyone they love." He gave a half smile. "Then let's make it a beautiful lie." "No." As the clock ticked toward midnight, they stood together, ring on her hand, ghosts in their chests, and a promise between them that felt more real than anything either of them had held in years. One day, one lie, and maybe, just maybe, something dangerously close to truth. The sun filtered through the blinds in soft golden stripes, the kind that made everything look more peaceful than it actually was. Maya woke before her alarm, heart already racing. It was Saturday. Game day. The day her lie would walk into a room, smile, shake hands, and convince her entire family that he loved her. And it had to be perfect. Her apartment was quiet except for the rustle of her grandmother's dress bags, the faint hum of a gospel playlist Mama Ruth insisted on playing while getting ready, and the nervous thrum of her own heartbeat. Her mother and grandmother were already fussing in the other room, arguing gently about head wraps and which shoes matched which dress. Maya showered quickly, then changed into the ivory wrap dress she'd chosen for the party. It wasn't a bridal look, not entirely, but it had just enough elegance to say, "This woman is loved." At 11 a.m., a sleek, black town car pulled up in front of her building. Ethan stepped out in a tailored suit, dark blue, crisp, white shirt, silver cufflinks. Not flashy, just precise. And devastating. Maya stood at the curb, hands trembling slightly as she clutched her clutch. Ethan's eyes met hers. "You look married," he said simply. She smiled. "You clean up okay yourself." The car ride was quiet for a while, filled with the sound of city traffic, and her nerves tap dancing across her ribs. Finally, Maya broke the silence. "You sure you want to go through with this? I said I'd be there. That was before you met my Aunt Lottie." He glanced at her. "How dangerous is she? She once slapped a politician at a wedding because he called cornbread cake." Ethan gave a rare, soft laugh. Duly noted. By the time they arrived at the community center in Harlem, guests were already spilling out onto the sidewalk. Laughter echoed from the open doors, and the smell of barbecue and baked macaroni hung in the air like perfume. As they stepped inside, all heads turned. A hush, then murmurs, and then applause. Maya blinked. They were clapping. For her. For them. Ethan instinctively reached for her hand, and she let him. Their fingers laced naturally, as if they'd been doing this for years. He leaned in slightly, his voice just above a whisper. "Smile, Mrs. Caldwell." Her cheeks flushed not just from the name, but from how effortlessly he wore the role. Confident, calm, every inch the devoted husband. They moved through the crowd like royalty, stopping to shake hands, pose for pictures, receive congratulations. Maya didn't deserve but needed more than she'd admit. Cousin Desmond offered a salute. Aunt Lottie narrowed her eyes, clearly skeptical. But Ethan met every look with steady charm. Even when Mama Ruth stepped forward and held his face in her hands. "You take care of my baby today," she said, "or I'll forget Jesus long enough to hurt you." Ethan didn't flinch. "Yes, ma'am." The party surged around the music, speeches, dancing, but Maya barely heard any of it. She was watching Ethan, watching him hold babies, talk sports with uncles, compliment casserole with practiced ease, and for a few surreal hours, the lie became a balm. She wasn't a failure, she wasn't alone. She was married, respected, complete, just for today. During the toast, Maya stood beside Ethan as cousin Erica clinked her glass. "To Maya and Ethan," Erica said, beaming, "who proved that love can be quiet but mighty. May your days be long and your fights be short." There was more applause, and then unexpectedly Ethan reached for the mic. Maya's breath caught. He hadn't rehearsed this. "Thank you," he said, voice low but clear. "Maya and we didn't plan to be here today. Life has a way of surprising you. Sometimes you meet someone, and they don't fit the mold. They challenge you, they humble you, and somehow, that's what makes them unforgettable." His eyes found hers. "Maya made me believe again. In second chances, in starting over, and in finding home in unexpected places." The room melted into sighs and cheers. Maya could barely breathe. He stepped back. People pulled them into hugs. Laughter rolled like thunder, and yet inside her chest, all she could hear was that one sentence. "Maya made me believe again." Was it part of the act? Or something else? As the party wore on, Ethan stayed near, brushing her hand now and then, offering gentle smiles, speaking just low enough that no one could hear but her. When it was finally time to leave, Maya helped Mama Ruth into the car, holding the hem of her dress, smoothing her grandmother's shawl. "You did good today," Mama Ruth said softly. "That man looks at you like you're his whole sky." Maya looked away. "It's just for today, Grandma." Mama Ruth took her hand, squeezed it. "Even pretend flowers bloom if you water them enough." As the car pulled away, Maya stood in the street with Ethan. the evening breeze cooling the heat of the day. "Well," she said, voice quiet, "that was something." He looked at her for a long moment. Then gently, "We pulled it off." "Yeah. No. Did you get what you wanted?" Maya nodded. "I think so." He didn't move, just watched her. And then softly, "Did I?" The silence between them swelled again, this time not with tension, but with wonder. And just like that, the lie they had built, brick by careful brick, didn't feel like a wall anymore. It felt like a door. Sunday morning sunlight spilled through Maya's apartment window like a confession. For the first time in days, there were no rehearsals, no schedule, no pretense to perfect. The party was over. The lie had done its job, but Maya felt no relief. Instead, there was silence. Too quiet. Like the stillness after a storm that leaves you wondering whether to rebuild or run. She sat at the tiny breakfast table in her apartment, her fingers wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee. Mama Ruth had left early that morning with Lorraine to catch their bus back to Virginia, their goodbye hugs long and lingering. "You looked happy," Mama Ruth had whispered into Maya's ear before getting in the cab. "Don't forget how that feels." Now, the apartment felt hollow again. Maya tried to push away the ache in her chest, but it settled there stubbornly, as if to remind her. This was always the plan. One day, one lie, one return to reality. She still wore the ring. Her thumb brushed against it absently, and with a sigh, she slipped it off and placed it on the kitchen counter. It left behind a faint, pale circle on her skin, a ghost of something that never was. Her phone buzzed. "Ethan." Text. "Can you come by?" No greeting, no explanation, just a request. She stared at the message for a long minute, then typed back, "Now?" His response was immediate. "Yes, please." That please caught her off guard. It wasn't like him. Ethan Caldwell didn't ask. He directed. The softness unsettled her more than any silence ever could. 30 minutes later, she was standing once again in the elevator of his penthouse, hands clammy, heart uncertain. She wasn't sure what to expect. A debrief? A thank you? A businesslike handshake to seal the end of their charade? The doors opened, and there he was. Ethan stood near the windows in a navy pullover, barefoot, his expression unreadable. No blazer, no armor. He looked more like a man in his home than a billionaire in command. "You came," he said quietly. "You asked." She stepped inside, and the doors whispered shut behind her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he gestured toward the coffee table, where 2 cups sat already poured. He'd remembered how she liked it. No sugar, 1 cream. They sat facing each other in silence, sipping, and then Ethan spoke. "I expected to feel relieved." Maya didn't look up. "And?" "I don't." "No." She finally met his eyes. "What do you feel?" He hesitated. "Like the moment we walked out of that party. I lost something I hadn't realized I wanted." The honesty hit her like a warm wave. She set down her mug. "Ethan, it was never meant to be real." "I know. It was just a lie." "I know," he said again. But his voice betrayed him too low, too full. Maya looked away. "So why does it hurt?" Ethan stood, walked to the far window, ran a hand through his hair. "Because it wasn't all pretend." The words lingered in the air like the scent of memory. "You held my hand like it mattered," he said. "You smiled like you knew me. And for one day, I forgot where the act ended." Maya's throat tightened. "And now?" He turned to her. "Now I don't know what to do." Her voice was soft. "I think you do." They stood in silence. The city murmured below. Maya felt her heart race not with panic, but with clarity. "I lied to my family," she said. "But I never lied to myself." He walked back toward her, slow, careful. "And what's your truth, Maya?" She swallowed hard. "That I've never been looked at the way you looked at me yesterday, and I don't want that to be the last time." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out the velvet box again. Inside, the same platinum ring. "I don't want it to be pretend anymore," he said. "Not if you don't." Tears sprang to her eyes, uninvited. She stepped back, unsure whether to laugh or cry. "This is crazy," she whispered. "So was asking me to be your husband for a day," he said, stepping closer. "But you did." Maya looked at him, at the man who had stepped into her lie and made it feel like home. "Are you saying you want to be? What, real?" He nodded. "I want to take you to dinner without a script. I want to hold your hand without rehearsing it. I want to learn what makes you laugh without being told. She laughed, a watery, disbelieving sound. You're serious? I'm not a man who does anything halfway, he said softly. You taught me that. Maya looked down at the ring on the table. Her hand trembled as she picked it up. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Then we'll figure it out together. She smiled, and just like that, what began as a single desperate lie became the beginning of something they could no longer call pretend. The next few days were strange. Strange in the way an old house settles after a storm. Nothing cracked or broken, but the silence was louder. Maya found herself hyper-aware of the quiet gestures between them, the way Ethan reached for her coffee without asking how she took it, the small touches at her elbow when they crossed streets together, the way he looked at her just a little too long when she wasn't paying attention. They had crossed the line, that much was clear, but the rules of this new territory were still unwritten. Tuesday evening, they met again, this time at a small art exhibit in Soho. Ethan had invited her, casually, over a brief call in which he used the words, "I'd like your company," instead of, "I need a favor." And something about that shift made Maya say yes before she had time to overthink. The exhibit was in a narrow gallery space, the kind with moody lighting and too many people wearing scarves indoors. But Maya liked it. She liked the bold strokes on the canvases, the honest blur of color, the smell of old wood floors beneath her heels. Ethan stood beside her, hands in his coat pockets. You paint? Used to, she said, in college. I stopped after I started working. Life got too full, or too small, he said quietly. She looked up at him. You ever stop doing something you loved? Yes, he replied. I stopped letting people in. They moved slowly through the gallery. The exhibit was titled Fictions and Foundations, a collection of works inspired by the masks we wear and the truths beneath them. Fitting, Maya murmured as they paused in front of a piece called Facade. It was a painting of a woman standing before a mirror, her reflection smiling while her real face wept. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You ever think maybe we were too good at pretending? She exhaled. Yeah. But I also think pretending helped us find something real. No. Like what? She turned to him. Like this, right now. There was a beat of stillness. Then he reached out, brushing a curl from her cheek with the gentleness of a man who had once built walls and now didn't know how to live without touch. I keep trying to figure out when I stopped pretending. Maya's breath caught. And I think it was the moment your grandmother looked at me like I was already part of the family. She smiled. She liked you. I liked her. She reminded me of my own grandmother, tough, no nonsense. Smelled like Vicks and wisdom. Maya laughed. That's about right. They walked toward the back of the gallery, where fewer people lingered. The conversation dipped into quiet again, not uncomfortable, just thick with meaning neither of them could quite name. Ethan finally said, Maya, I've spent years calculating risk business, people, timing. But this thing with you, it doesn't add up. It's not practical. It's not safe. Bess, she waited, but it feels true. Maya's heart pulsed loud in her ears. So what are you saying? I'm saying I want to keep seeing you. No scripts, no pretending. And when people ask, we tell them the truth that we didn't meet at a gala, that we didn't fall in love in the traditional way, but that somewhere in the middle of a lie, we found something that made us want to stop lying. She nodded slowly. That sounds messy. It is, but honest. Ethan stepped closer. You still scared? Terrified, she admitted. He reached for her hand. Good. Me too. They left the gallery hand in hand, slipping into the cool night air like a secret waiting to be spoken aloud. The city buzzed around them, taxis honking, neon signs flickering. But none of it mattered. They walked for blocks without saying much, turning corners like old friends rediscovering a path. When they reached her apartment building, they paused at the steps. I'll walk you up, he said. She shook her head gently. Not tonight. He looked surprised. She added, if we're starting over, let's take it slow. A pause. Then he smiled, really smiled, the kind she rarely saw. Okay, slow. She kissed him on the cheek, then turned to go. But as she reached the door, she glanced back. You still have that ring? She asked. He held up his hand, safe and sound. Good, she said, her voice softer now. Don't lose it. And then she was gone. Ethan stood there a moment longer, hands still lifted, before turning and walking back toward his car, something like hope settling in his chest. Neither of them knew exactly what would come next. But for once, they weren't pretending. 3 weeks passed. Not fast, not slow, just enough time for people to start asking questions. The kind of questions that slipped into conversations like loose threads, begging to be pulled. So, where's your husband now? Asked Aunt Janice over the phone one evening, voice syrupy, sweet. Working, Maya answered, stirring a pot of gumbo as she balanced the phone on her shoulder. Always working, Janice said with a soft snort. Rich men stay busy. But don't stay for long, I hear. Maya let the silence stretch just long enough to end the conversation. Click. She hung up, dropped her spoon into the sink, and leaned against the counter. It had begun. The whispers, the curious glances, the subtle doubts, some from her family, others from people at work who suddenly treated her like she'd been upgraded beyond their understanding. But it wasn't just them. It was her. She had begun to wonder. What were they now? She and Ethan weren't rehearsing anymore. They were seeing each other dinners, late walks through Riverside Park, quiet mornings at his penthouse with jazz playing low while he read the news and she sipped coffee in his oversized hoodie. But they hadn't labeled it, hadn't dared define it. Still, when Ethan sent her a message late that evening, "Come by if you're awake. I need a break from spreadsheets insanity," she went. When she arrived, he was barefoot, shirt untucked, glasses slightly askew. She had never seen him look more undone, or more real. "I needed to see someone who isn't asking for projections," he said as she slipped her heels off. "You're in luck," she replied. "I only demand wine and full attention." "Nah." He poured her a glass, handed it to her, and they sat together on the balcony, overlooking the city. The kind of view that made people believe in dreams again. "Had a call from my mother," Ethan said after a while. "Oh?" She heard about the party. An old business partner of hers has a niece who was there. Words getting around. Maya stiffened slightly. "And, what did she say?" "She wants to meet you." The wine soured on her tongue. "Meet me?" He nodded, taking a slow sip from his own glass. "Next week. She's flying in." "Ethan," she said carefully, "do you realize what that means?" "I do. It's not pretend anymore. You can't present me to your mother like I'm a line item. She'll see through it. I don't want to present you. I want to introduce you as someone I care about." The silence was thick, honest. Maya swallowed hard. "And if she doesn't approve?" He met her gaze. "I'm not asking for her approval." Something in her chest unclenched at that. And yet, she wasn't ready to feel relief. Not entirely. Later that night, as she slipped one of his shirts over her head and walked barefoot through his apartment, she paused at a side room she hadn't noticed before. The door was ajar. Inside, a tidy office, minimalist desk, framed black and white photos, and one portrait that stopped her cold. A woman, elegant, light-skinned, angular features, sitting beside a much younger Ethan. She wore pearls, and her expression was fixed in something between pride and steel. His mother. Maya stared at it until she heard his voice behind her. "You found hair?" She turned. "She looks strong." "She is. And difficult, but not unkind." Maya hesitated. "Does she know I'm black?" Ethan took a breath. "She hasn't asked, but I suspect she knows." "Ethan." He closed the distance. "I don't care how she reacts." "But I do," Maya whispered, "because if she disrespects me, I won't smile through it, and if she questions who I am to you, I will walk away." His jaw clenched, but he nodded. "And I'll follow." Her throat tightened. "Don't say that unless you mean it." "I do." He stepped even closer. "But you have to trust me enough to let this happen." She looked at him for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "One condition," she said. "Name it." "You tell her the whole truth. No stories. No fancy gala introductions. You tell her we started as a lie. And that somewhere along the way, we started telling each other the truth." Ethan stared at her, then placed a hand gently at her jaw, leaned in, and kissed her with a slowness that felt like a vow. "No more lies," he murmured. The next morning, Maya woke in Ethan's bed alone. She heard his voice from the hallway, soft and measured. "No, Mother," he was saying. "She's not from our world. That's the point." A pause. Yes, I know what I'm doing. Um, Another pause. And then, because she's not impressed by my last name, she's not afraid of me. And when she looks at me, I don't see legacy or numbers. I see a man. Maya pulled the covers up to her chest, heart pounding. His voice dropped. That's the kind of woman I want in my life. You can choose to meet her, or not. But I'm not changing the truth for anyone. Not even you. Click. She heard the phone hang up, and she realized in that moment Ethan Caldwell had just crossed a line too. He wasn't pretending anymore either. The penthouse never felt colder than it did the morning Evelyn Caldwell arrived. She entered like she owned not just the space, but the oxygen within it, poised, silent, and polished in a cream cashmere coat that swept the floor behind her like a royal train. Her pearl earrings gleamed under the foyer chandelier, and her silver gray hair was pulled into a chignon so precise, Maya thought it might have been sculpted. Ethan greeted her with a quick, almost reluctant hug. Evelyn barely returned it. I expected someone to meet me at the airport, she said calmly. I sent a car. I said someone, not something. Maya stood at the edge of the hallway, unsure whether to step forward or retreat entirely, but Ethan's eyes found hers steady, silent, inviting. Mother, he said, gesturing. This is Maya. There it was. The moment, Evelyn turned slowly, her eyes sliding over Maya like a scanner, taking in everything from her natural curls, the simple dark green blouse, to the silver locket resting above her collarbone. Miss Williams, Evelyn said, voice clipped but not rude. So you're the woman my son believes is more important than optics. Maya blinked. Optics? Ethan stepped in. Mom, Maya isn't. But Maya raised a hand gently. It's all right. She approached Evelyn calmly, extended her hand. Thank you for making the trip. Evelyn didn't shake it. She simply looked at it, then met Maya's eyes. I believe in understanding before pleasantries. So let me ask plainly. What is it you want from my son? Maya felt Ethan stiffen, but she kept her voice even. Respect, honesty, and a relationship that neither of us has to hide. Evelyn's brows lifted, impressed or surprised. Maya couldn't tell. And love? The older woman asked. That too, Maya said, though we're still learning what that means. A pause. Evelyn finally turned to Ethan. You've changed. I've grown, he said. And this growth. It includes rewriting our family legacy with a girl from Harlem and a fabricated wedding story. Ethan's jaw tightened. It includes me making choices based on my heart, not your social calendar. Evelyn turned to Maya again. You lied. Yes, Maya said without flinching. I asked your son to pretend to be my husband for a day, and he said yes. Why? Maya inhaled. Because I was tired of being seen as less than by the people who were supposed to love me the most. Because I let fear write my story for too long. And because I never expected to meet someone like Ethan. Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. You realize this, whatever this is, won't be easy. You'll face assumptions, rejection, from people who think bloodlines define worth. I already have, Maya said. And yet you're still here? Yes, Maya answered. Because I'm not ashamed of who I am. Evelyn went quiet. Then, she moved toward the sitting room without a word, the silence stretching taut. Ethan and Maya followed. Coffee was served by the housekeeper. No one spoke for several long minutes. Finally, Evelyn set her cup down and folded her hands in her lap. You remind me of someone, she said to Maya. Maya blinked. Who? My mother. Ethan looked up sharply. She was a seamstress, Evelyn continued. Fierce, proud, black. She married my father, a man who nearly lost everything to do so. Our family learned long ago that love outside the lines is a battle. Maya's throat tightened. I didn't expect to see her in you, Evelyn added quietly. But here you are. Ethan leaned forward. Are you saying you approve? I'm saying, Evelyn said, standing, that I'll have to learn. And then, to Maya, but make no mistake, if you break him, you won't just answer to me. You'll answer to the thousands of sacrifices made to give him the life he has. Maya stood as well. And if he breaks me? Evelyn paused then, very softly, smiled. Then I'll be the one who holds him accountable. It was the closest thing to a blessing Maya would get. But somehow, it was enough. That evening, Ethan stood beside Maya in the kitchen, watching her slice vegetables for dinner. She likes you, he said. Maya laughed. She tolerated me. She respected you. That's better. No. A pause. Then Maya said, you didn't tell me about your grandmother. I didn't think you needed another reason to be nervous. Well, she said, placing a hand on his. Thank you for letting me walk into that fire anyway. Ethan turned, looked down at her, his expression unreadable. I don't want to hide you. Maya smiled. I think your mother just made sure we never could. He leaned in, rested his forehead against hers. Then let's stop pretending completely. No. She closed her eyes, letting his presence settle over her like warmth. No more lies, she whispered. Outside, the city kept moving, unbothered. Inside, they were finally still. The first real snow came that night. By morning, the city was draped in white rooftops dusted like powdered sugar, cars buried under thick blankets, sidewalks shimmering with the crunch of salt. Maya stood by Ethan's window, coffee in hand, watching the world slow down. New York didn't stop for much, but snow made even ambition pause to admire stillness. Ethan walked up behind her, sliding his arms around her waist. You're quiet. Just thinking, she said, leaning back into him. Dangerous, she chuckled. Only when I start wondering if any of this is real. His lips brushed her temple. It's real. She wanted to believe it. Most days, she did. But even now, weeks into whatever this was, they still hadn't said it. The word. That thing that lived between longing and fear. Love. Instead, they filled the space with comfort, and for now, that was enough. Until the call came. Maya's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something instinct maybe urged her to pick it up. Hello? A pause. Then a voice, nasal, too sweet. Miss Williams? Yes? This is Christina Keller. I work with the New York Times lifestyle section. We're putting together a profile on the city's most intriguing love stories. Your name came up. Man, Maya froze. Excuse me? Yours and Mr. Caldwell's, of course. The woman added smoothly. We're fascinated by the contrast. Corporate royalty meets grassroots heroism. And the wedding so romantic. Maya's breath caught. There was no wedding, she said automatically. A pause. Oh, that's surprising. Who gave you my number? Let's just say you've captured attention. People are curious, some even skeptical. We'd love to set the record straight with your blessing, of course. Maya ended the call. She stood frozen in the kitchen, pulse thudding behind her ears. Ethan walked in moments later, hair still damp from his shower, buttoning his shirt. Everything okay? She turned to him. Someone from the Times just called. He stopped. What? They want to do a profile on us. Our story. Ethan swore under his breath. How did they get your number? I don't know, but they know the wedding was fake, or at least they suspect. He moved toward her. I'll take care of it. Ethan, I will make one call, and it'll disappear. She shook her head. That's not the point. He frowned. Then what is? The point is, I'm tired of being something you need to manage. His face fell. I know you're trying to protect me, she said gently, but I need to be part of the solution, not hidden behind it. You're not hidden, he said quietly. You're the only thing in my life I want to show off. She softened. Then let me stand beside you, not behind. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. You're right. I've worked so hard to build this reputation. Every headline has the power to destroy years of progress. And I've spent my whole life proving I deserve to be in rooms people never wanted me in, she said. I'm not afraid of whispers. I've heard them all. He looked at her. Really looked. You are the bravest person I know, he said. Then let's stop running from this. That afternoon, Maya sat at her kitchen table and typed a short message to the reporter. Thank you for reaching out. If you'd like to know the truth, I'm willing to tell it on my terms. She hit send before she could overthink it. Later that night, Ethan took her out, no disguises, no private elevators, no hiding. They walked hand in hand through Bryant Park, past skaters and street musicians, and every time someone looked their way, Maya lifted her chin a little higher. They stopped at a quiet corner near the fountain. I have something for you, Ethan said. He pulled a small box from his coat pocket. Maya blinked. What is it? He opened it slowly. Inside, not a ring but a pendant, a tiny gold circle etched with the letter M. Not because I own you, he said softly, but because you own a piece of me now. Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes. I want the world to know you're mine, he continued. But more than that, I want you to know it. Mo. She took the necklace, fingers trembling. It's beautiful, she whispered. You're beautiful, he replied. He fastened it around her neck, his fingers brushing her skin. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. But I'm ready. So am I. They stood there in the falling snow, something unspoken but undeniable blooming between them. A promise, a future neither of them had planned, but both of them had chosen. Maya looked up at him, and finally she said it. I love you, Ethan. He exhaled. I've loved you since the day you walked into my life with your fierce eyes and impossible idea. And just like that, the line between lie and love disappeared. They had nothing left to pretend. The profile dropped on a Thursday. It wasn't front-page news, no scandals, no clickbait headlines. Just a quiet, beautifully written story tucked into the lifestyle and culture section, under the title, A Love That Didn't Follow the Script. No. The byline read Christina Keller, and the article started with a quote from Maya. It began as a lie. But the heart doesn't care how a story starts, only how it ends. The piece was honest, shockingly so. It detailed how Maya, a Harlem-born caregiver and community advocate, had once begged a billionaire stranger to pretend to be her husband for a single day. It told of shame, of expectations, of the weight of being unmarried and black at almost 30 while being judged by family, friends, and neighbors. It explained how Ethan Caldwell, CEO of one of New York's most powerful firms, had agreed initially, out of annoyance, then curiosity, and finally, affection. It didn't romanticize. It humanized. Maya read it 3 times that morning. The first time, she wept. The second, she laughed. And the third time, she just stared at her name in print and whispered, I survived this. She hadn't told Ethan she'd agreed to the story. She needed it to be hers. Her voice. Her version. After so much pretending, she owed herself that much. Her phone didn't stop buzzing. Dozens of texts, some from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Cousin Desmond. Girl. That article? I'm speechless. And I'm never speechless.